Right, good day all. So we're moving on along to Surah 70, right? Ways of ascent. Um, so what? Be patient with a gracious patience, right? So patience, as I was saying, is a virtue emphasized throughout the Quran and almost every surah, right? It is a virtue that is emphasized, right, heavily throughout the Quran, right? Um, so when I say ways of ascent, what we mean is that ways in which you can attain God, attain Allah, right? Or attain liberation, right? Meaning detachment from this world and attachment to Allah, right? Detachment from this world or worldly affairs and attachment to Allah on your way back to Allah in preparation for your way back to Allah, right? Um, Right. So we are talking about referring to those on this path, right? Ways in which you can attain this, right? And Rabbi was saying at the same time, we exist in the world, right? So there must be a balance. You can't just completely 100% detach yourself. And this is for people of the world and so on. You can't just 100, in fact, it's for all of us. You can't just 100% detach from this world while still living in here, right? The Quran also is about justice and bringing about justice in all situations, right? So what the book means, a remover of exteriors, and I was thinking about this as well, like I always do, think about things in a Caribbean context and how we can help the Caribbean to move forward in terms of charting our own destiny, right? In terms of charting our own destiny, right? So one, remove of exteriors, meaning that to be authentic, right? Remove from yourself that which you are not inherently, what the things that are not inherently you, right? Meaning that you get back to yourself, meaning that you return to who you are inherently, right? One, right, meaning being authentic. Two, in terms of the Caribbean, right, how we can help use this book, right, because the book is meant to be used to help ourselves, right? Allah reveal the book that we may help ourselves, right? Remove of exteriors, meaning what? We do not need to what? Depend on organizations, right, outside of the Caribbean to tell the Caribbean what to do. We can rely on a form of guidance if necessary in terms of discussions and collaborations and consultations, right? But there is no one outside of the Caribbean who can say, hey, you have to do this or else, right? You have to inject vaccine into people or else, right? You have to take this course of action or else your debt will increase, la 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 la, right? You have to take this loan. You have to take this loan from the IMF. You have to take this loan from the World Bank or else, right? There is nothing written by God that says something like that, right? There is nothing written by God that says that the Caribbean must take this loan or else, right? So we are trying to move away, right? And I hope those in charge are hearing this, right? We are trying to move away from organizations like IMF, World Bank, WHO, all these things, right? Saying that, hey, you must do this or else, right? That is what we are trying to get away from in the Caribbean, right? The holding you hostage, holding the governments of the Caribbean hostage, or holding people in the Caribbean hostage. You must do this or else, right? Because it happened in the past and it's been happening in a more modernized form as we move forward in time, right? So a form of Caribbean independence is what we are seeking, right? Caribbean independence, right? Just imagine having these organizations willing to drive entire nations, entire groups of nations, right, down a path of deprivation and poverty, right? Because what? Read Confessions of an Economic Hitman, right? You will know, you will see, right? Read that book, and that book has a lot of reality, a lot of things, right, that actually occurs in reality. It is not fiction, it is actual reality, right? whereby people are paid to come into our nations, what they call third world nations and so on, to extract resources, and it's been going on from time immemorial, to extract resources, right, under the guise of this project and that project, right, reconstructing of this project and that project. And so this is how billions and billions of dollars are funneled through and funneled back into the mainstream big organizations and leaving Caribbean and other countries, right, deprived and in a state of poverty. It's been going on from time immemorial. We are here to rectify that situation, right? We are here to rectify that situation, right? So removal of exteriors mean removal of those organizations thinking that they can invade and come into people's property, right? Meaning people who inhabit Earth already and wipe them out, right? And you come and extract the resources and do what you will with it, right? We are removing those things, right? Enough said, right? Right. So do not turn your back from the truth when it comes to you, right? When you collect, do not be amongst those who collect wealth and hoard it, right? Do not be amongst those who collect wealth and hoard it, right? So mankind was created anxious, right? Meaning that created out of haste, right? So it goes back to, and I've been making this point before and all, right? To do not be amongst the people. If you see, if you're auntie or grandmother, a person my age, if you're a young person, whoever you are, do not be among those who, when you see a young female or a young male, right, you ask, hey, when you're getting married, when you're having a child, right? These are things people in this generation are thinking very, very, very carefully about before they go into, right? It is a child is like a lifelong project, right? When you think, and this is reality, people might think I've been sung, and people who have children and spoiling their children and might think that I am harsh and saying that, but a child is like a lifelong project, right? So people want to think carefully about making these kinds of decisions, right? People want to think carefully about making these kinds of decisions. So do not be amongst the people who haste or make people anxious or make people cringe inside, right? By virtue of saying, oh, well, when you're having a baby, girl, when you're having a baby, right? When you're having a baby, right? These things tend to have a crippling effect on people inside, especially when one, they are waiting for the right person if they want to move in that direction, one, and two, you are not in a position to rush or to haste anybody into having a baby, right? Nobody is in a position to haste anybody. Oh, the biological clock is ticking, right? So relax, right? Sit down, relax, right? Calm all the old traditional selves and the traditional aspect within you all, right? That have you all thinking that, hey, this person, my mother, my grandmother, my XYZ, my aunt, my this, my that, did that before. So I have to do this by this age, right? I have to do this by this age. I have to do this by this age, right? We are trying to remove these kinds of anxieties, fears, these kind of things that are basically have been forcing people into forms of action that they might not necessarily have wanted in the first place, right? So people like to, in this generation, and want to going forward, take their time to make certain decisions, right? Take their time to make certain decisions, right? Right. So next, be comfortable with if you have to present yourself in the face of Allah and the face of God, right? And this is in accordance with Islam as well. If you are amongst those who have to present yourself to Allah, right? Be amongst those who are comfortable in saying, hey, where did this wealth come from? The money you have in the bank, where did this come from, right? The money that you have in cash, right? Where did this come from, right? How did you source this wealth? Was it by righteous means or was it by non-righteous means? Did you gain it by stealing? Right? Did you gain it by working hard? Did you gain it by charity? Did you gain it by what? Was the source of this wealth that you have? If you are amongst those who are asked to present yourself in front of Allah, right? Good. So guard your private parts, meaning that you don't have to do this forever and ever, right? But until that individual or person crosses your path or comes across you and you develop a relationship and so on, and exclusively for that person, right? Be attentive to your trust and promises, right? Carefully maintain your prayer, and if people ridicule or make fun of you along your path, right, leave them to converse vainly amongst themselves, right? Leave others to converse vainly amongst themselves, because not everybody is actually in the position to understand your journey, right? So moving along to 71 tomorrow.